We've been constantly developing our tools and throughout the history releasing new versions using cutting-edge technologies available at that time. And soon we're going to release new version of processing plant optimizer planning that will be using deep reinforcement learning. And if you don't know what deep reinforcement learning is, you can always watch our previous episode and figure out what it is. But just to fill you in, it's artificial intelligence technology that is helping you do very complicated scenarios, that is taking your historical inputs, actual data, your sales forecast, and trying to match everything together and provide you with optimal schedule by kind of playing a game with itself and figuring out what's working out, what's not, and then learning itself and giving you a best solution. All right, welcome everyone. This is MTech podcast. My name is Nikolai Shitikin and I have Jim Johnston with me. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Nick. How are you this week?
I'm doing really good. And again, today we're going to discuss something. And on this week's episode, we're going to discuss poultry processing plant planning. Again, as usual, very interesting topic, very big, and probably we'd want to start with discussing a little bit about what kind of challenges and what kind of problematics we have in this area, especially during the current period.
Yeah, it's a really incredible subject because the last 3 or 4 months with COVID-19 really brought to the fore all the changes that the planners and companies have to cope with. I mean, we've seen a massive change in demand from food service into retail products. We've seen retailer demand go through the roof, and such that factories and planners have had to reduce the number of SKUs so that they can increase the volume on various production lines and stuff. So it's been real headaches in this last 3 or 4 months.
Oh, I can imagine. And especially since companies now switching to different products, like you said, completely different SKUs. So the balancing is off. You know, if some companies been mostly doing retail, they would have to keep the stock of certain SKUs, and now everything disbalanced since everything was tuned to produce certain level of SKUs, store them and sell them. But now you need to really reproject to everything. You need to replan everything. It's a big job, big task.
Yeah, indeed. And the other challenges is people, of course. You know, there've been absenteeism levels have crept up as people have got sick, and that's impacted on numbers of people you can have on the production lines. So it's impacted on throughput, created bottlenecks where there probably wasn't bottlenecks before. And so all that has become a real problem and hassle to be managed, and for planners to find a way of solving it. So it's put incredible limitations on the supply chain and a lot of stress and pressure on supply chain. The other thing, of course, is a lot of people trying to manage planning jobs from home because effectively not allowed into offices, and having to do all of this online and find new ways of keeping in contact with the factories and with their planning teams and keep the show on the road.
Yeah, exactly. And also, since everything is changing, so your one side of supply-demand line is changing, your demand is changing. So the supply was still there, you know, because birds are placed, eggs are set, you know, and everything is going on in continuously. So now we need to really reconsider what's happening there. Should we have enough more placements? Should we have less placements? Should we grow birds differently in order to have a different weight at the plant? So this is really, again, another big complication in the supply chain. And like you said, you need to do it all from home mostly. But of course, some people go into the factories because factories cannot stop. And a lot of coordination has to happen. So you need to have tools readily available.
Yeah, well, hey, the other thing though, Nick, is a lot of people historically are just using spreadsheets to manage all of this, and it's quite an exercise. You know, they've been built in a business over many years by the planners themselves in most cases, and They've all been, when they're fragmented, they're trying to share and work off spreadsheet tools, etc., to make things happen. So it's become increasingly difficult to operate in this kind of dynamic marketplace over the last few weeks.
Yeah, that's a lot. And also, especially imagine big companies. If you have one plant and just several customers, that's one thing. But if you have multiple plants, thousands of SKUs, hundreds of customers, and you need to do all this coordination, I can imagine, or I don't want to imagine, what kind of mess it is to control all of that with really old school Excel spreadsheets. And especially if you planning one problem, then execution, how do you control that?
Yeah, absolutely. But we know it's a real challenge anyway, because regardless of the disease problems in COVID-19, historically, you look back, and my experiences is always a challenge to take the live birds, and their varying weights and volumes, and actually successfully turn it into meeting your orders and your demand from, is always a massive challenge to do that. Birds come in too heavy, too light, throws everything upside down. You got to change plans on the hoof, on the fly throughout the day, adjusting to the different weights coming in from the farms, and maybe different to what's been forecast. So it's a very dynamic and I guess increasingly stressful area to manage.
Yeah, exactly. And talking about experiences and talking about the tools, well, we at MTech have lots of experience in the planning area as well, and especially in the processing planning. And we've been constantly developing our tools and throughout the history, releasing new versions using cutting edge technologies available at that time. And soon we're going to release new version of processing plant optimizer planning that will be using deep reinforcement learning. And if you don't know what deep reinforcement learning is, you can always watch our previous episode and figure out what it is. But just to fill you in, it's artificial intelligence technology that is helping you do very complicated scenarios, that is taking your historical inputs, actual data, your sales forecast, and trying to match everything together and provide you with optimal schedule by kind of playing a game with itself and figuring out what's working out, what's not, and then learning itself and giving you a best solution.
Well, that's really exciting. I mean, I think it's an incredible opportunity. It's a very problematic area, and it's really exciting that MTech's launching this new product, or new version of the product, should we say. And, because that whole area of taking that live bird and matching it through into SKUs and meeting the demand and customers' orders is critical, as we've said, and it's really challenging. So to have a tool that helps provide the planner with, the carcass weights coming in, the disassembly, the different portion sizes, matching that with SKUs, and doing a lot of that engine room stuff is really, really going to be a big benefit, and really trying to get order fulfillment, utilizing the specific plant requirements or the capacities of each line, of each piece of machine, and the numbers of people that we need also on the line in order to produce the SKUs. I mean, pack sizes are different. So every SKU is different, got a different throughput, volume, and capacity on each of the production lines. So something that takes account of all of that would be of real benefit to planning in that environment.
Yeah, but also, like you already mentioned, like big list of things to consider, but there are more. For example, like you said, every bird, every product would be going through different lines, through different stations, through different packing or cutting or whatever iterations the product should go through, and you can make whole assortment of different SKUs from one bird or from one part. So some of them could become a final product, some of them could become work in progress. So it's a lot. And also, we're talking about disassembling and reassembling and then creating a final product. Because if you think in terms of systems, it's kind of hard, because usually in manufacturing, what happens, you have parts, You put parts together, you have a final product. Here, we already have kind of final product, whole bird. Then we disassembling it, pushing it through the production, assembling it again, adding additional things like wrapping, packaging, labels, everything, and we're getting another product.
Yeah, I mean, just to underscore a couple of these things. I mean, chickens are not kind of tins of beans. I mean, we're dealing with a live product. We're dealing with a bell curve. We're dealing with a bell curve that's different if it's males or it's females or it's as hatched birds, if it's a different breed. So to have a tool like PPO that takes account of the sex of the birds, takes account of the breed, takes account of the different weights and the bell curve, and then also the yield of all the various constituent parts is an incredibly powerful tool. And then also looking at that factory, what are the production lines? What's the line speeds, the capacities, as we say, and really mapping what the throughput is, and then keeping that in its consideration when it's generating the plans and looking at product mix requirement for each shift.
Yeah, exactly. And but the pushing all those products through the plant or projecting all of that is one thing, but also this is like your workflow. But on the other end of the plant, you have sales orders, you have markets, you have customers that you need to consider. You need to decide whether this customer is prioritized over this customer, or this market prioritized over this market or area. So you need to think and know and plan, considering all those things. And like you mentioned, chickens, this is our main ingredient, if you wish. So you need to provide the good quality of chicken, like you said, on the bell curve. They should be consistent. They should be in the right weight. They should be in the right head count so that you can produce all the right SKUs for all those customers on the market.
Yeah, indeed. And just again, bill of materials, individual parts of chickens, etc. What weight should be in each SKU? But as you said, a tool that can also then capture trays, labels, bags, all of that additional stuff that you make that makes up an SKU. And on top of that, PPO will have a look at and it'll understand costs of production for each product in each individual plant. And then also look at what is the selling price. So we'll interface with the ERP systems, grab sales price, grab cost of production by SKU, and all of that is considered as part of the plan, I guess, that you're drawing up. So you've got not just the demand and your ability to pack and meet the orders, you've also got in that product mix running the opportunity to run different scenarios that take account of what margin can we make if we make different product mixes on any specific shift.
Yes, and like you mentioned scenarios, and you mentioning like what is profitable, what is best. But of course, like we mentioned in one of our previous episodes, it doesn't matter if you have a good tool, bad tool, greatest tool. You still need to have right people in place in order to run those tools, make decisions, and coordinate all of that. And you probably, Jim, can tell a little bit more about this from experience, how important people are in this industry.
Yeah, Nick, I mean, that experience that planners have is very, very crucial. And what we're trying to do here with PPO is to provide a tool that crunches the numbers and it acts as an engine room, if you like, and replaces all the spreadsheets and stuff. And then what we're really looking for that experience, the planning team, is to give them more time. So rather than crunching the numbers themselves on spreadsheets, they're actually analyzing, they're tweaking, they're running scenarios. And one of the key benefits of PPO is the speed at which you can run different scenarios. And that is really a tremendous advantage to utilize the planners and all their experience and really help them to do the job more effectively by running different scenarios and comparing the margin or their ability to pack out and meet customers' orders is something that's going to be of significant importance going forward.
Yeah, and like you said, again, I'm keep on coming back to those scenarios because I'm really fascinated about this. Because I remember that from my experience, you always get that request. Oh, we need to do this. Can you recalculate that real quick? Can you run this scenario? Can you run that scenario? And it's always a painful job because you need to gather all this information together. You need to analyze, make sure that everything copy pasted all right. But with the tools like this, it happens smooth, and like I really love that functionality.
Yeah, well, in many markets around the world, you're dealing with fresh product, and quite often the orders don't come in until quite late. So you don't have a lot of time to react to the orders. And of course, a lot of birds are going to arrive. Live birds will arrive, and they won't be at the weight that was predicted. There will be an issue there. So the ability to have a tool that allows you to rework and replan and run different scenarios almost, or if you needed to, on an hour-by-hour basis throughout the day, so you can tweak and adjust and change the plan to maximize the whole thing for the factory and ultimately for fulfilling orders. It's just an incredible addition to the tools that we can offer any integrated poultry company.
Yeah. And I mean, we can continue talking about this almost forever because it's such a big, wide, and deep topic. But do you mind summarizing everything that we just discussed?
Wow, yeah, I mean, it is a massive subject and it's a really exciting opportunity. I mean, it's a fabulous tool. And it's all about how do we take the live birds as they arrive at the processing plant? How do we match these live birds to the demand that we get through sales orders for different SKUs? And how do we utilize taking account of the footprint of each factory, the capacities, the line speeds, down to individual machine capacities, cut-up machine capacities on a line? How many people do we need on a production line? So taking account of people and equipment and mapping the flows through the plant, taking account of the live bird weights coming in, the disassembly, looking at the sex of the birds, the breed types, and all the different bell curves and uniformity at the various weight ranges. Taking also bill of materials, so a full bill of materials, right down to trays and labels and bags and packaging material, etc. Matching all of that up and then overlaying cost of production by SKU, selling price by SKU, and then being able to spit out an optimized product plan for your factory on a shift-by-shift basis with the ability to run fast scenarios and changing as dynamically as things change in a factory, from an order changing from a customer to a live bird coming in on a truck that's 150 grams heavier than you planned. Just having the ability to quickly run different scenarios is a significant benefit, I would suggest, to every poultry organization around the world.
Wow, Jim, even in the short wrap up is so much information, so much in this topic. So thank you very much for discussing this with me today. And for everyone who don't want to miss any new episodes, please join us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and on Twitter. And of course, check out our website.
Thanks, Nick. Been a pleasure talking to you again this week. We'll see you next week.
See you next week, Jim.
Bye now.